So while he's only been a sitting United States Senator for just over 3 months, Texas lawmaker Ted Cruz is quickly becoming one of the leading voices of the conservative movement. And from his unwavering support of Rand Paul's filibuster to his fierce opposition of Chuck Hagel's nomination for Secretary of Defense, Senator Cruz has already demonstrated he has no problem confronting the establishment. Now, he proved that yet again last week when he dared to question veteran California Democrat Dianne Feinstein to justify why she thinks the government has the right to limit the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding Americans. Watch this.
Would she think that the Fourth Amendment's protection against searches and seizures could properly apply only to the following specified individuals and not to the individuals that Congress has deemed outside the protection of the Bill of Rights?
I'm not a sixth grader. Senator, I've been on this committee for 20 years. It's fine you want to lecture me on the Constitution. I appreciate it. Just know I've been here for a long time.
Nobody doubts her sincerity or her passion. And yet, at the same time, I would note that she chose not to answer the question that I asked, which is, in her judgment, would it be consistent with the Constitution for Congress to specify which books are permitted and which books are not, and to use the specific number?
The answer is obvious, no.
All right, following that exchange, Cruz was hammered by the left and was even accused of being disrespectful. Now, Senator Feinstein was recently asked about it as well. Watch this.
Senator, clearly you were insulted by what Senator Cruz said. Walk us through your thinking.
Well, I just felt patronized. I felt he was somewhat arrogant about it. And, you know, when you've come from where I've come from and what you've seen, and when you found a dead body and you put your finger in bullet holes, you really realize the impact of weapons.
All right, patronizing, arrogant. Why? Because he asked a tough question? Here with reaction to all of this, Senator Ted Cruz himself. Senator, welcome back to the program.
Sean, it's always great to be with you.
All right, let's get your take on this. I liked your question. I would have liked an answer because this was a constitutional question. You're a former attorney general. You think she was uncomfortable answering it?
Well, look, I think we should be asking a lot more questions in Congress about the constitutionality but just about everything this body does. You know, I have to say the reaction to that particular line of inquiry, it reminded me of Nancy Pelosi's reaction when she was asked, what's the basis in the Constitution for Obamacare? And her reaction was, are you serious? Are you serious? For a long time, a whole bunch of Democrats and unfortunately even some Republicans have been passing laws in this body without even asking where the basis is in the Constitution. And I think the Constitution should be the starting point for everything Congress does.
All right, Senator, I'm in full agreement. I want you to maybe take people through this. We cut it a little short, the full exchange here, but you mentioned the Fourth Amendment and you mentioned the First Amendment. And you mentioned specific instances where, well, would we do it here? Would we do it there? Why don't you explain what you meant?
Well, the reason is if you look at the text of the Constitution, and I always think the text of the Constitution should be the starting point, the Second Amendment provides the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And then the point I made in my question is that language, the right of the people, is a term of art that the framers of the Constitution used other places in the Constitution. They used it in the First Amendment, the right of the people to peaceably assemble or to petition their government for redresses of grievances. And they used it in the Fourth Amendment, protecting the right of the people to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. And the entire premise of the assault weapons ban that the Senate Judiciary Committee just passed is that Congress can specify, pick which firearms it thinks are okay and which firearms it thinks that American citizens don't have a right to use. And so my question is, look, the identical language about the right of the people is found in the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment. Do you think Congress has that same power to pick and choose when it comes to other parts of the Bill of Rights?
Yeah. Well, we're a society governed by the rule of law. Rule of law is its foundation is the Constitution. Here's what makes it more interesting to me, Senator, and that's Dianne Feinstein. She has the right to defend herself and carry a weapon. This is what she said in '95.
I know the sense of helplessness that people feel. I know the urge to arm yourself because that's what I did. I was trained in firearms. I'd walk to the hospital when my husband was sick. I carried a concealed weapon. And I made the determination that if somebody was going to try to take me out, I was going to take them with me.
I'm going to take them with me. Now, the interesting part with all this gun control talk, you, for example, in New York City, very few people have the right to carry a weapon. It's almost impossible to get a carry permit in New York City. So she's not affording her fellow Americans the same right that she was bragging about back then. What's your reaction to that?
No, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, one of the really unfortunate things we've seen, Sandy Hook was now just a little over 3 months ago. And it was tragic. It was horrific. Every one of us, I mean, I've got 2 little daughters at home, and you couldn't have been anything but horrified to see young children senselessly murdered like that. But it seemed within minutes of that tragedy, you had politicians rushing out to use that tragedy to push an anti-gun agenda. And I think we need to, number one, target violent criminals and be far more effective at stopping violent criminals from committing horrible acts of violence like we saw in Sandy Hook. Yeah. But number two, we got to protect the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens. And I view my job every day as representing 26 million Texans and coming up to the Senate and standing up for the Constitution, standing up for the Second Amendment and the First Amendment and the entire Bill of Rights and our Constitution, which the framers meant for the Constitution, as Thomas Jefferson put, the Constitution should serve as chains to bind the mischief of government. And the problem, Sean, if you look at President Obama, it seems like he doesn't want to recognize any limits on government power. I think we need to stand for limits on government power and for individual liberty.
Let me ask you this. I watched your speech live at CPAC, and great speech, by the way, and you got a rock star welcome there. You even got some votes. You've only been in the Senate for 3 months, and you got some votes for those that may like to see you as the next president. There have been questions raised about the issue of, are you eligible to run for president? You were born in Canada.
Well, Sean, I'll leave those questions to others to worry about. You know, I've been in the Senate now for 10 weeks, and I got to tell you, we are in the midst of battles every day with folks coming after our liberties. And so my focus is 100% on the U.S. Senate and standing up and defending our liberty.
But your mother was a U.S. citizen, just to clarify.
That's correct. My mom was a U.S. citizen, so I'm a citizen by birth. I
think the left is, I hear birther cries building on the left if you ever do run. So, all right, Senator, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be with you.